Welcome. My name is Ivan Elias. I am a master's student and international student at Boise State University, and this is my podcast, Venturing Voices. Here, we will talk about and advocate for the challenges faced by international students and how these challenges impact their lives, engagement in class, inclusion in the community, and relations with peers and professors. By hosting international students in this podcast series and hearing their authentic stories, I am aiming to promote cultural competency in our Boise State community. So let's introduce our first international student guest, Annie, from Honduras. Annie, you're pursuing a master's degree in public policy and administration. Is that correct?
And public administration, yes.
Public administration. What did I say?
Public policy and administration.
Okay.
It's almost the same. It's
almost
quite
the same.
similar, yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about you? Could you tell us a bit about the culture in which you grew up?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, my name is Annie. I'm from Honduras. And overall, culture in Honduras is very, community-centered, I would say, and family-centered. So there's, people are just very welcoming towards each other. There's a lot of gatherings, a lot of food. There's always food. And people are, generally very happy, I would say. And we don't, wait for the weekend, for example, to have gatherings or things with families or friends. We do it whenever we want to and whenever we can. So it's very community oriented, and it's very loud, at least in the city where I lived in or where I grew up in. And yeah, the traditional dish, just as a curious, thing to mention, is baleadas. Which is like a flour tortilla with refried beans and then some kind of a version of sour cream, which we call it mantequilla, and then some cheese around it. That's the basic baleada, but it's not the cheese that you find here in the United States. It's a different kind of cheese.
Do you make an American version of this here? Or you don't even try with the local product in the U.S. to make it?
Yes, I've tried it, but I actually have a lot of, exported product or imported products in that sense. And so I basically make it with Central American products.
Oh, cool.
If there's no Honduran products available.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our second international student guest today is from Mexico. He is pursuing a bachelor's degree in pre-mechanical engineering. Let's welcome Sebastian. Sebastian, could you share a bit of your journey so far and maybe a little fun fact about you?
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm from Mexico. I like a special beverage from Mexico. And that would be my fun fact, I think.
Thank you.
I like to be with my family a lot. I don't like just the pure beverage. I like to be with someone or somebody to drink it.
What does your culture look like in Mexico, where you grew up?
I would say it's similar, as Annie said, because I think that's how Latin people is. I'm a very family person too. I like food a lot. I think the food I know and my favorite food is from my mom, from my grandmothers, and I make a lot of plans with my friends, and as Annie said, we don't have to celebrate something. It's just if we can do it on Friday, we do it on Friday. We can do it on Saturday too. It's just
right.
Our thing,
Cool.
I like that a lot.
What made you want to come to Boise State?
Sorry?
What made you want to come to Boise State?
I think the opportunity to maybe improve my life in some things. I think that was the main thing. And then my uncles said, "Hey, you're welcome in our house." They live here, and my parents said to me, "If you can't do that, it's your choice." And I chose it.
Nice. It's nice that you have family here in Boise.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And finally, I'm excited to introduce Tim Randall. Tim is the International Student Services Coordinator at the Center for Global Engagement at Boise State University. Wow, that's a long title.
It's a mouthful.
Welcome, Tim. Tim, you always have your door open to help international students with whatever they need. You also lived in Ukraine for a little while. could you share with us a bit of your journey?
Yeah, my journey to Boise State has been a long one. I went to college in Philadelphia. I studied politics, and I wanted to be a foreign service officer. That was my goal. So after college, I joined the Peace Corps. I went to Ukraine, lived in Ukraine for about 2.5 years. I taught English in a little rural village school of about 500 people. After Ukraine, I moved to Boise, which I love. I love Boise. It's my favorite city in the United States. I worked for the YMCA before this, doing a lot of youth development stuff, and this opportunity arose at Boise State to work with these wonderful international students, and it really hit my passion for cross-cultural communication and my interests in global politics. So it was really nice it was a really good blend of passion and my career.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you today.
Oh, thank you.
So in today's episode, we're going to talk about isolation, building community, homesickness, and social life. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing your experiences. I think it's so important to share your truth as an international student, and because there's so little, awareness about what we experience as international students, and sometimes also a few misconception. So, Annie, how long have you been in Boise for?
I've been in Boise for about 4 years or around so. I came to Boise a little bit pre-COVID, but I didn't stay here. I was just visiting and then came back to study in Boise State. And it has been around 4 years so far. And I have been almost 3 years in the program.
Nice. So we're going to really jump straight on the topic of isolation. How do you define isolation in the context of your experience as an international student?
I can talk from my experience. I would think that every single international student has unique experiences, and it varies. But overall, how I would define it is a state in where you, despite wanting to have community or create community around you, your mind and your body decide just to stay away from that or stay home, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Can you recall a specific example?
Yeah, so for example, something that has been very challenging for me is exactly that definition. And so it's I have been always somebody very much, like I mentioned, community oriented, and like to get involved as much as I can and serve as well. Just like Tim mentioned, foreign service, and also my background is in politics, international relations, and somewhat right around that corner. And so I've always tried that way to get myself around people, because I tend to say I feed from the people's energies. However, here it has become very much challenging. For some reason, I don't know if it's something of a cultural shock, because I've studied abroad before and I didn't have that type of boundary. But here it was everybody's relationships with me were very transactional and not so much outside of the scope of what we're doing, either at a job capacity or at an academic capacity. And so the relationships would stay focused in those realms, but never outside of that to build actually a relationship. And so I think that has been what has created the isolation too, with that cultural shock. And myself, I only have my partner here. So it's not like I have longtime friends, or family around me that gives me that comfort space. And so that part has been something that has been a very much different factor from being home than coming here.
Right. Yeah. What does isolation look like to you, Sebastian?
I would say that isolation to me is like wanting to go back to Mexico, because as we said, we're very family people, and I miss that a lot. And I have my uncles, my cousins here, but it's just not the same. It's the same at my house. Well, here at the house, but like outside of it, it's not the same. And I would say that is isolation to me. Like wanting to go back, but cannot until maybe summer or Christmas or something like that. And yeah, I always say that, like wanting to go back but can't, and feeling that like that thing is like loneliness to me. I always say
It is, and it's a tough thing to go through or experience as an international student when you study abroad so far from your family.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know it doesn't. How much time difference is there with Mexico or Honduras? Is there any time difference at all?
Fortunately for me, there is not right now. Before with daylight savings, there was like 1 hour,
Right.
but that's not
me
much.
too.
Yeah, because for me, like, you know,
Yeah.
the
It's
loneliness
like 8
and
hours, right?
isolation. Yeah, the loneliness and isolation comes from the fact that, you know, you're busy all day. You go to school, you go to work, you have lunch with friends, and then the night comes and there is that time where like, oh, that's usually people call their family at night and talk about their day. And for me, with the time difference, there's like 7 or 8 hours difference with friends, and I cannot call them at night. And I think that's my experience with isolation, where I'm like, I cannot call my friends or my family at night, and that's the time where I kind of want to talk to them the most. So yeah, it's a different experience, I guess,
Yeah,
for
you have
every
to schedule yourself a little bit more.
Yeah. And you know, sometimes you don't want to call your family in the morning.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on everything that has been said, or your own experience living in Ukraine?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was talking about it this morning with one of my colleagues, and isolation was weird for me in Ukraine. You know, I, like Annie, I'm a very social person. I thrive off being around social environments, and my level of Ukrainian was probably way lower than your level of English, but I remember it being so hard, even though I was surrounded by so many people. To have a fulfilling interaction was incredibly difficult because I didn't understand a lot of what was happening around me. You know, I would understand a sentence here, a sentence there. They would ask me a question, I would respond to the question, but when native speakers were talking to each other, I was just in the middle, like, not understanding what was happening. So it was very difficult for me to have a fulfilling social interaction. So I felt isolated.
That's hard.
While also being surrounded by people. So it was a very interesting concept. And same with the time difference. It was about 10 hours. And so I couldn't call my family. I couldn't call my friends. So yeah, it was really interesting. And it was really hard.
It's hard, but you learned a lot about yourself too in these moments, you know, because it's difficult. You're like, it's yourself, yourself and I, right?
Yeah.
And you learned a lot about how you react to things and how you can find solutions and strategies to move forward, even if there is that difficulty.
Yeah, I think that there's like this double-sided like spectrum, right? It's pretty cool to be alone in a way and feel comfortable with yourself, but at the same time, it's also challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add that to my definition. That thing of being like surrounded by people, but at the same time feel like I don't know what's going on, and with like in the talking of everybody is like, because I understand sometimes everything about what everybody says, but like I understand the words, but I don't understand like the meaning that those words have from behind. So that's kind of hard because it's not like I can search in the dictionary or something like what are those definitions, and that's interesting, that part of being
like slangs.
Yeah,
the challenge of like forming connections due to like a difficulty in the language you're trying to speak.
Yeah,
definitely plays in feeling isolated. I don't know if that was really English what I said, but it made sense in my
it makes
head.
sense. It makes sense, and we have the context and history of a country too, or culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the culture was a big part for me too. Like, it was not just the language, it was the culture. It was hard to connect with people from an entirely different culture. And so that was also difficult at first, right? Until you kind of get to learn the culture, or even just like the passive understanding of language. Like, for me to understand Ukrainian, I had to think about it. I didn't gain the passive, awareness until about 2 years in. And at that point, I was getting ready to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you found certain activities or practices that helped you through this kind of like loneliness stages or isolation?
Being busy.
Being
all
busy.
The time.
How do you keep busy?
Homework, work, or if I have something else to do that I want to do or learn, I do it. Because at those times, I cannot think about anything else but just doing that. And yeah.
In previous conversation, you mentioned that you play soccer. Is that something that is useful?
Yeah. Well, as you said, at night is when you feel like the most loneliness because, well, you cannot, it's just yourself. So I found that waking up early and doing exercise or going to train is I feel very like, like I wake up in the morning, I just get ready, arrive, and start running, playing with the ball. I found that very helpful to that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Therapeutical. How do you say that word?
Therapeutic.
Therapeutic.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Definitely it is.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, what I can say from like my own personality, like I mentioned before, I like to get involved as much as I can and help. And if I can contribute towards like my community, I will. And so that's what I have been trying to do, like participating in clubs and organizations. Like for example, like there's this Latin American Association of Students. And so I've gotten involved there. Then there's like the International Student Association. Then there's different groups, but there's also group therapy through health services as well. Even though sometimes it's hard for them to come up with the whole group, but at the same time, knowing that that resource is available, it's helpful too. And so I think those are a couple of activities or instances I've tried to create community, as well as create relationships. I've had, I don't know, like just for me, it has been much more easier to create relationships and bonds with international students than actually non-international students. And non-international students, is not that they do not want you as a friend, but it's a different type of relationship or friendship, I would say. And so
they don't have the same experience and maybe not the same understanding than other international students. It might be hard to like relate.
Yeah, and it's like I think that for scheduling, like I was mentioning, right, it requires much more energy and coordination to sustain a relationship with someone that it's like always busy and they have to schedule you in your calendar like 1 month from now just to go take a coffee or tea. Besides maybe international students that have similar cultures or community-centered focuses where it's like, I make time for you even though I have a lot of things to do around my agenda,
Right.
Yeah, so my priority is the relationship itself. And it's not that you cannot set a boundary where I need to do some things, right? We can maybe later talk and do it, not at this moment, but there's more like inclination towards doing it than not.
Right.
Yeah. We talk about it at orientation sometimes that Americans are like avocados, where the outside they're very soft and squishy, they're very nice, and they always say they want to hang out or get coffee, but trying to crack that inner pit is really difficult. And so it's really interesting to hear stories from international students about creating friendships with Americans because it's very culturally different. When I was in Ukraine, I remember thinking it was so weird when I would meet a Ukrainian for the first time and they'd be like, so you're coming over for dinner tonight, right? I'm like, I just met you.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a seat on the table already.
Yeah.
Already, yeah. And so I think I couldn't imagine how difficult it is coming from a culture like that to a culture in America where it's like, oh yeah, you have a seat in a year's plus time.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yes.
very hard to make those friendships.
And what I've observed too is that, you know, you find time to meet one-on-one with an American friend and you go for lunch, brunch, or like a drink, and then there's no follow-up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you reach out one time and maybe a second time if you're courageous and you don't really receive anything back, so you're just like, okay, hint is taken, I'll back off, you know. As like, I feel in France or other cultures, it's more like, oh yeah, we had a fun time, let's do it again. And it's more, how do you say?
Like family, not familiar.
Yeah,
like being.
It's more
that-
like a real exchange, like give and give.
That exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's something that's super unique to Americans is the, I think just as a culture, we are individualistic, right?
Yeah.
Our culture, our identity is built around how independent we can be. And I know in a lot of other parts in the world, it's just not like that. So growing up, you know, when you're taught that your community, your friends, your family are such an integral part of your life, when we grow up, it's a little different. It's like, oh, if you're still living with your parents at 18, you're a failure.
In this economy?
In this economy? Yeah, it's really interesting to hear international students talk about like making friendships with Americans, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry. Good luck. We are hard.
Yeah. Community is definitely different in the U.S. than in other countries. And for international students to build a community in Boise State here, it makes it a bit more challenging. So I want to kind of like transition to building community. I think that was an amazing transition. Taking under account how difficult it is to interact with Americans sometimes and to build that connection with American students, how did you find a sense of community in Boise State, or how did you build that community for yourself?
Excellent question. So I guess that my perspective around creating my support system changed. And so for me, it was thinking outside of my cohort, for example. It was more so looking into these organizations or associations, right? But not only within Boise State and the university, like on campus, but outside too. What can I do outside? Like volunteering maybe. And not just that, but within, like, for example, my workplace, that it's also here in Boise State, they work with a lot of international students too, and a lot of different cultures. And so some of them have this more community focus. I keep repeating that, but it's just like they are more welcoming in that sense. And so building relationships with them has been much more closer and better connected than actually students. And so from like a professional like perspective, they have become also my support community, or my support system actually. And also, I guess changing that, the sense that back at home, I might have had like friends from each group, right? You have your college friends, so you have your high school friends, you have your, I don't know, your community friends, your neighbors, all of these different people around you all the time that you know and have grown up with. And here, it was more of quality versus quantity. And since day one, I met in the international student orientation, actually, I met one person from Guatemala, and she has become like practically my best friend here. And so having at least one person that you can connect with and build those relationships, I believe it's much more worth it than having like your, I don't know, like 100 people around you that don't connect as much.
Right.
Can you repeat the question? Just to make sure.
Sorry, I said so many things.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, how did you build a sense of community here?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a good question. Well, I think I haven't built that like at 100%. I have some friends from work. I have some friends in my classes, but as you said, it's not like more like in deep relationship. It's just like more, hey, we're at work.
Surface
We
level.
must, yeah. It's like, I mean, I think my best friends are from work, but it's the same. I mean, they're my best friends here, maybe, but it's like it depends on the day. We talk some days. We don't talk a lot of another days. So it's like, yeah, it's like what was the word? Superficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's we talk at work, but I mean that's it.
Right.
It's not like we go
You
out
don't really hang
more.
out outside
No.
of work, yeah.
No. And yeah, I think I haven't built that very, very like 100%.
Well, I hope in the future months or like next semester you get that opportunity to build more you know, of that community of yours and kind of like support system like Annie was saying.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really-
Thanks for that
Yeah.
vulnerability, because
It
that's
is.
true. Like
It is
sometimes
true.
you don't feel the relationships are very topical, you know.
Right. And it's not something that comes to you naturally either. It's really something you need to get out of your comfort zone to like obtain, you know. And I kind of want to ask Tim about that because Tim, you work closely with international students, and in your role, how do you build or try to build that sense of community within the international student population?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we as an office always feel like it's a moving target, right? We try to host events, we try to connect people early on. Ruth, my boss, and I have done a really good job, in my opinion, of revamping orientation to connect students to each other. And so, Andy, I'm not sure if I think you came before I was in this role,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So,
yes, I was.
and Sebastian, you came when I was in this role. So, I would love to hear like how your orientations were different. But we try to really connect students that orientation to build long-term success. And, you know, we are in this mode of, do we create a ton of events for international students to try to hit them where they're at and at what times work best for them? Or do we encourage international students to go to pre-existing events with other international students to try to, you know, find a balance there? So we always feel like it's always moving.
Right.
But we have ideas. We've got, you know, I talked to Annie about specific graduate programming. You know, we are always open to suggestions, open to trying new things. You know, we just, you know, it's hard for us to understand, right, what the needs of the community are without these sort of feedback.
And it might look different also for like international students. You know, not all international students are the same and are looking for the same thing. Some are like in their undergrad, some are graduate students. So their point of focus might be different.
Yeah, and I'm sure it is different. I'm sure the programs that Annie wants are very different than the programs that Sebastian wants. Except for karaoke. It sounds like we're all going out. We're going to have a karaoke night.
With the kid.
With a special magic drink from Mexico.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
We're bringing the Central American. The podcast is talking about alcohol all the time.
You know,
And food.
And food.
Yeah.
And dancing.
I want to add that, well, thanks to, in grand part, thanks to the team I'm here, because he was a big part of my process, and I want to thank you. And also, I think I remembered from last semester I did feel like that community, but it was with international students, and that little group was made from an activity. I don't know which one, I don't remember, but it was from there. We were like, well, from Mexico, it was just me. We have 2 girls from Spain. We have a guy from Colombia or 2. We have people from Japan. We have people from, I think there was a guy from the US actually. That was whoa. But we were like I think that the amount that we had is like we're starting from the same thing, that we are not in our home, even in our homes. So we will need to make friends, you know. That starting from there is like, yeah, we can relate each other more. And I think, well, a big, like, maybe a bad part, I don't want to say like that, but a bad part of me is that I don't live very close to school. So sometimes I would like to join those activities, but it's like 40 minutes drive from there, so it's like
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
and also a part of my isolation is that during classes or during training is like I'm with a lot of people and I don't feel that connection. So I just want to be like at my house. Like I don't want to go out. I want to just be
Like,
with
it's
me.
not worth it.
Yeah. So maybe that's like a bad part of me, because it's like I want to, but I don't want to, because
I think it's a balance that you need to
Yeah.
find, you know, between what you're comfortable with and your will to like get out of your comfort zone a little bit to
yeah, I
foster
need to
those
do
like
that.
connection.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that is really hard to do when you move to another country and it's a totally different culture, and you know it's a bit harder to motivate yourself to do those things.
Yeah.
It requires
It
much
is.
more like energy,
Much more energy,
like mental,
Mhm.
emotional, and physical energy.
Yes.
especially when you're in that mode where you know you should, but you don't
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, it's
And
like
you're
your
like,
body
no.
doesn't respond to
Yeah.
what your mind knows that it's good for you.
You're like, I need to do this, but I just really want to stay here and watch more YouTube.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to share about your experiences building community when studying abroad?
Maybe that I'm here for the whole career, but for example, for that group from last semester, all of them or most of them were from exchange programs, so most of them are gone.
Right.
So-
Yeah, it happened to me too at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, so maybe that part is like starting to have something and then
They
That's
go
hard.
away.
it's gone.
That's hard, yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
There is
Yeah.
new exchange student every semester.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe you should stop by orientation
Maybe.
and meet the new exchange student, and that's
But
such
they're
a
gone
great
again.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh my god, you should all apply to be mentors in ISOLs.
Do it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Are you gonna pay me?
That's a sensitive
ISOLs
topic.
Get paid, yeah, you know.
That's another international topic that's worth bringing on to.
Yeah, it's the ISOLs get paid, and they're awesome. It's a really fun 2 days, and it's great. I think I'm biased because I built it, but it's fine.
I'll apply.
Yes,
You should.
I'll be expecting your name.
All right.
I would just emphasize. Let me start again. I would like to emphasize that building community is not just helpful for you as you are a student overall, because it helps you, like, you know, go out, build relationships as much as you can, enjoy activities, maybe get some exercise that it's difficult to sometimes when you're not motivated, and learn from other cultures as well. But also within the aspect of like your personal and professional growth, like making that network is also essential for like just in the future, or as well You never know if you go to the country of where the other person is from at one point and you can connect again, or if I don't know, you stay and you acquire a job too, right? And you can build more those relationships on the long term. And so I guess that kind of redefining a little bit the part of like the culture shock of relationships is maybe thinking it for like the long term instead of a short term investment in relationship building.
It's a long-term goal for yourself, but you explaining that, it just made me think also about the other international students that are coming in.
Yeah, the exchange.
I think creating a sense of like community among the international students and keep that going, it kind of like creates a momentum that for the new international student coming into the university, they have or they feel that there is a possibility for them to build that same sense of belonging, I want to say, but also community.
I agree.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for agreeing.
Maybe also adding that I think we are in a very like physical touch culture.
Ooh, that's a very interesting topic here. Yeah.
So also from saying hi, shaking hands, or with a hug, or for example with girls or something like that, is like hi, and with a kiss, all that is like also an introduction to a relationship. There is like hi, and since you say hi, it's like hey, we have something. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
If you go to a room and you have like 10 people around, you go with each one of them with a hug and with a kissing.
Yes.
Right?
It is the same thing in France.
Yeah, and when you go, it's the same thing. Bye, hug, and kiss.
That's like when you go to a gathering in France, you don't want to be the last one arriving because then you have to go
everyone.
Around, you have to go around the room and just say hi to everyone, like kissing on the cheeks.
In US, two kisses, right?
Yes, in France it's 2 kisses, and the south of France is actually 3.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
3 kisses? Do their lips get dry like after the whole room?
Well,
like...
actually, okay, I want to kind of specify that it's
yeah.
not really a kiss. It's more like you
Like
touching
smoosh.
like a cheeks, like
But it's still the movement, right? Like
It
your
is-
lips, in theory, would still
Yeah.
get dry.
It's like this with
I
the
don't know.
microphone, like this. So you know.
Yeah, like you
Oh, so it's not like
It's like this.
you do.
You
The
do
weird
the-
thing is
the-
like you
the
do
sound.
make the sound.
well, your lips would get dry, right? I would assume.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
But-
know. It's been a while. I've been living in the U.S. for too long. I don't greet people like that anymore.
You're like, I'm American now.
When I go back to France, it's really hard to get back into that dynamic of saying hello by kissing on the cheeks.
And after COVID, things also
that's true.
changed a lot too.
Yes, that's very true.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, just people's personal bubble after COVID is probably way different than it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, totally.
But that it's a thing that also, if you do that, you have a relationship with everyone. For example, at the classroom, you know everybody just by saying hi. Is like, for example, right now I don't know like most of my classmates at classes.
I feel like that way of greeting creates a certain like connection.
Yeah, because
Like
if I
closeness.
see you at the supermarket,
Yeah.
I know you, and I will say hi to you because I know you, and you're in my classroom. I know your name. I say hi to you every day. So that's a relationship. And from there, you can just say, you can just say, hey, let's hang out Friday night.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, party or food. And then again, classroom, school, I see you. And then, hey,
And
again.
you follow up with a text and
exactly.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
My American self is kind of like coming back up, but I just thought, I touch your cheek. We're a friend now. You know?
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I have a story about my first orientation that I ran here as the International Student Services Coordinator. I used to do a lot of team building and community building activities on my old job with the YMCA, and most of those are like physical touch team building, right? It's the human knot or it's the electric slide or whatever it is, and they're all like, you link arms or you hold hands and you have to do these certain activities to build community or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the day before my first orientation, my boss Ruth just goes, hey, you probably already thought of this, but you plan the community building with like no physical touch activities, right? Because some parts of the world don't really do that. And I'm like, yeah, totally. I did that. And so I was scrambling the day before orientation to change my entire community building session around more verbal team building.
Yeah.
Which was a new challenge, but it was fun.
I feel like when you're involved with international students, you're always kind of like adapting and being flexible on how you present yourself and how you communicate. You're learning. It's a learning curve, but it's also an ever-changing curve. Like, it's always evolving, and there's always new factors involved, and new countries also involved, where you're like, oh, I know that in this country, maybe in South Asia, they're not as like physical, than in South America or Central America.
Especially between like men and women.
Right.
Right. Like that gets really weird in certain parts of the world.
It's a different dynamic for sure.
Yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, I totally thought about that. Yep, you're right.
What did you end up making your team building activity about?
I mean, really, it's just kind of what we do now. It's the Fist of 5 comfort zones. Find someone, talk to them about why you chose that number. It was the 4 corners activity where like you agree, you strongly agree.
That one.
What else was there? I don't remember like the middle activity. I always kind of switch around. Now we end on the rock paper scissors tournament.
This orientation sounds really fun.
Oh, they're awesome. They're the best.
I know. I wish I was there for that, but I wasn't. So
I almost won that one.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You were
and
like,
it's fun because like everybody's behind you and like cheering you on, and it's
phones are out. Everyone gets the.
Yeah.
No, I love the community building sessions and the intentionality that we put into that part of orientation. Right. Yvonne knows she's heavily involved in orientation planning, and our word is connect, and not only connect to each other but connect to Boise State. And so we're really proud of how far we've come on that.
Yes, I worked with Tim. No, I'm kidding.
There's
It's pretty fun.
here.
He's
I'm fun, I promise.
Let's kind of like move on to talking about homesickness. I know we've kind of like touched base on that a little bit, but I kind of want to get more in depth about it. Have you found ways to stay connected with your family and friends back home while living in Boise?
Oof, yeah. You need to. Or at least I need to.
I need to.
Yeah, and I just like randomly call them.
Right.
At whatever time. Or if I do not call them or I'm really busy, I just like go back and forth with voice notes, That's the great thing about technology now. I've had family members that before they lived abroad and they couldn't communicate the way that we communicate now. So I think that video calls are the best. I hope that hopefully we can teletransport in a way. That would be amazing, but not yet. So yes, I call all the time that I can. I try to text. I try to voice note, like I mentioned, as much as I can. And also with some of my friends, I do like video dates. And so we can watch movies together, or we can have like lunch together. Most of my friends are already in the working stages of their lives. So we say, okay, let's meet for lunch and have lunch together. And I did it also when I was like abroad last time. And even though the hours were very different, we would coordinate one specific hour that we would like be together so that we can watch a movie, or we could do whatever we wanted, right? And we have also played board games together. There's now phone games that you can play from people around the world, right? And you just send like a link and stuff, which is very fun. And so I guess that take advantage of technology.
I think a lot of these things arose with COVID.
Yeah.
Like those like kind of like virtual dates. And
I guess it was more popping.
Right. Yeah. I guess so. It was. Yeah.
Yeah. More platforms availability, right? But yes, I need to stay connected with my family. It's not really a want at this point. I think it has never been, but just it depends on your connection with your family, right? There's some people that are not as close, and that's okay, as long as you have some support system within, like,
Right.
around you.
I call my parents once a month, and I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah. It depends on the relationships too.
My grandma, though, my way of communicating with my grandma, she emails me every Sunday. So every Sunday I receive an email from my grandma and I reply. It's like coming in the office on Monday. It's the first time I do it. I reply to my grandma at 9 a.m. when I come in the office on Monday. And it's kind of like my way of communicating with her because she's not really like proficient
Like
with
smartphones
technology.
and stuff, yeah.
So yeah, it's cute.
That is nice.
Yeah. You're looking forward for that email, right?
I am.
Well, for me, the same. FaceTime has saved me many times. I do it mainly with my girlfriend and with my parents. With my girlfriend is actually there are many times in the day like I get out of class like, hey, FaceTime, and she's out of class too, and FaceTime, and all the days like that. And with my parents is more at night. When they're home, like having dinner like that, I call them, we talk like, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing with classes? And that's our way like to keep in touch. And with my friends, it's a little bit harder because we're like 7, so we need to like coordinate all those times, and it's harder. But when we do, oof, it's like
It's a good time.
Yeah, we're in Zoom, and hey, I'll take that beverage from the fridge. Hey, me too. Hey, me too. And hey, how are you doing? How are you doing your classes? And it's like that feeling that hey, we're far away, but
Feels good.
yeah, it feels good. And it's also most of my friends we're from the same town, but most of us went off to study.
Right.
So we all need that thing of hey, we need to keep in touch. So we're in the same spot, so it's not like just my thing with my friends. We're like feeling the same things, and well, that's nice. It's a good part of us.
It is quite an interesting dynamic. Two of my best friends are also living in another country. One of them is living in Estonia. She's studying to be a vet, and the other one is actually in Canada. I recently moved there to Montreal. And my third best friend actually was living in the U.S. For a while and then moved back to France. But that is kind of nice to have all 4 of us in one call, and we're all in different countries, and it's quite nice.
Yeah,
it's nice.
I used to
different
use
place to travel to.
Yeah, right. You have the world is now open to.
I've been to Estonia actually. It's really fun. Yeah.
I love Estonia. I love Eastern Europe.
traveling.
I'm very biased, but I love Eastern Europe. I could go there 10 out of 10 days of the week. I used to use video games. Me and my friends used to play, my college friends used to play League of Legends. And so we would use video games. We would have our time, and we would play that for hours. I was always the one that was playing like into the morning. It'd be like 3 a.m. and I'd be like, I have class tomorrow. I need to go.
That's what my husband does too.
And they're like, no, don't go yet. And I was like, but so that's how I stayed, connected to my friends, my family, growing up, even in college, I would never call my parents. Some cultures are different, right? But I think for me and my parents' relationship, like we just didn't, we don't have to talk to each other all the time to really know, how each other are doing. So I would call them maybe once every 2 months, especially if I needed something. I'd be like, hey, I'm out of money for groceries, Mom. But then I moved to Ukraine, and I would call them almost every day. And that changed, now in life, I call them at least once a week. And so I think it really shifted my perspective on my relationships with my parents and how to do, the long distance family thing. Because in Ukraine, it was if you spent the night away from your parents, you would call them and let them know how your day was. So I hosted a Ukrainian exchange student, I guess. She was my host sister when I lived in Ukraine, and then she was in America when the war broke out. So she came to live with Beth and I for like 8 months, and she would call her mom every night.
That's
and
sweet.
she'd just be like, "Oh, I didn't really do much today. I went to the library," and they would still talk for an hour. You know, and so I think that really changed my perspective on talking to my parents, and because I didn't know how much I needed their support until it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I was in a completely new place where I felt isolated. And I was like, "Oh, I need my parents."
Yeah.
Mom.
There's nothing like family support when you actually need to talk those feelings out.
Yeah, that's true.
And Tim, you make me remember, like, not the, like, in a way, the bad part of being away from family too. That's like the homesickness itself. That it's, at least for me, it's when events happen back at home, like birthday parties, when like family gatherings,
The FOMO.
Yeah, like Christmas or whatever like celebration you make overall, or traditions that happen and you miss them. Like sometimes I get video chatted, but not all the time, and you can't be there participating, which is pretty hard. And so I guess that's like the very, very concerning thing when you're abroad for yourself, because sometimes your mind can be your best ally, but it also can be your worst enemy.
Yes.
And so that's why I think that we try to get busy or whatever it is, in a way that we can try to focus our energy and our minds in another place that is not looking back at what are they doing at home, or I'm missing this thing, or and that applies not only to good events, but sometimes there's always some hardships that families go through, right? And when those hardships happen, it's also very hard, and especially if you can't go back home at the moment. And the way that I guess that the only advice I can give is like leaning in and feeling what you need to feel, but don't forget that there's always resources and like support that people can give you if you open yourself up, which is also very hard to do sometimes, and who you can trust and who you can't. And it comes like living abroad overall comes with its great things, and exciting things, and just amazing opportunities. And at the same time, it comes with a lot of sacrifices, and that includes like being away from your home people.
Right.
Yeah, I would always be caught thinking life is moving on without me in my home country.
That's the way it feels.
And then I would always forget that my life is still advancing where I am. It's just hard to see when you feel like you're missing out on so many things. That was the hardest part for me, was when my partner moved back to Boise from Ukraine. We did a year long distance where I was still in Ukraine and she moved back to Boise, and that was the toughest part, was seeing like, oh, she's with all her friends, she's with, and I feel like I'm stuck here. So I get it. That's tough.
Yeah. Also,
I can relate.
You said that you weren't that close with your parents, but I think it is a little bit harder. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say things that aren't, or generalize, but I think it's harder to move knowing that you have everything where you are at. Like, for example, I don't know about you, Annie, but I with my parents and with my girlfriend, my friends, I was very close, very, very close. Yeah. And since making the decision of I'm going to move, and then knowing that I'm missing all of that because I not wanted to, but I wanted to move. It's harder. I don't know. It's very hard.
Yeah.
And it comes with a lot of privilege to having the choice to move.
Yeah.
Not everybody has the choice.
That's very true. You want to create better opportunities for yourself, and like Annie said, it comes with like a lot of sacrifices.
Yes.
That sometimes you don't realize when you take that decision of moving, and then you've been living a few months, few years in another country, and you're like, oh, I do miss that. I know for me, it didn't hit me until last year, actually, and I've been in the U.S. since 2015, and 2023 is when I realized I was missing a lot of moments with my family, and especially with my two younger brothers. It was when I left, they were 14 and 11, and now they're 19 and 22. And, you know, it was a very important part of their lives, and I wish I would have been there, like, to see them grow. It's just my big sister kind of, like, personality, I guess. But yeah, it's tough. It's a lot of sacrifices.
Oh, Ivan, you touched a breaking point for me. I'm not going to talk about it because I'm going to cry here.
I almost cried here.
We can cry.
We can all cry together.
Yeah, big sister moment too here.
Yeah.
I just want to, like, kind of link that feeling and those emotions to our experiences here at Boise State, and how those, like, difficulties of living far from home affect our daily lives here at Boise. You know, our engagement in the community, our engagement in class, and our, like, academic performances. Because when you're feeling those feelings and sad feelings, it's hard sometimes to move past that and truly be engaged in what you're doing here, where you're at in the present. And there was no question here, but if someone kind of, like, want to bounce back on that.
I was trying to make notes about what I wanted to say because it's a fully loaded question.
Yeah.
And I guess I can start with, like, I guess that you try to compensate, like, what you're lacking. And that can go with a lot of different things, right? And like, again, from my Annie standpoint, it has been getting busy with getting involved and all those things, but maybe overestimating, like, my capacity. And so then you fall down into, you have all these things, right, that you're responsible and you want to be part of, because in a way it's trying to fill a void sometimes. Other times it's more so of, yes, I want to do it, but I also would like to have these other instances that I have back home, right, or opportunities that I have back home as well. And creating that balance can get very tricky and very tough. Just for me, like, mentally and emotionally has been very challenging. I guess, like, my first year was more okay, because, like we were saying, there's some of, like, international students at the beginning that come from exchange years. And so that was a time that I had a lot of people, like, around me, that we were having activities together. We had a group to chat with each other and things like that. And then, like, the group dissolved, right? And so from that point, I just had, like, that one friend that I told you about earlier, and like, motivation dropped, challenges were rising. And not only that, but there was a family event that happened that was very traumatic and very hard for me. And so I had to, like, disrupt everything in my schedule and my agenda and my school year and fly back home. And so deal with these things that all the challenges never stopped. And the, like, academics, job, everything was, like, all coming together and started piling up. And so having all those different, like, I don't know, variables around you affecting you, it definitely can push you to a point where academics are not going to be okay. You're going to self-isolate. You're not going to be so open to support, or if you don't have that community, it's going to be also hard. And so I guess that it's really, really essential for international students to try as much as you can to create a home away from home.
Yeah.
Which doesn't come easy, of course, like we have mentioned here, all the things that are very hard, and that can affect you overall, because, like, we're human beings, and yes, we can, like, be somewhat ourselves in, like, a job, you know, and away from the workplace, have, like, a different kind of sort of personality. But at the end, it's like we're all integrated. And so what happens at home affects your daily lives and your mental state and health. But thankfully here in Boise State, people have been very, and that includes professors, staff, health services has been a blessing, I guess, just because they have been very supportive to move on and create systems and structures that can help me address like those things that have been challenging for me. Right. And even though it's maybe sometimes one step forward and 2 steps back, it's still something that has, I guess, taught me a lot about myself and pushed me forward slowly but continuously.
Mm-hmm. What you're saying is so powerful and so relatable. Thank you for being that vulnerable. Yeah.
Do you have tissues? Oh, okay.
No, I 100% agree. I learned so much. The thing I took away from living abroad, right, was how much I learned about myself. And it was how much, I was able to build a community over there. I was only about an hour away from my closest American, and so who happened to live in like the big city. So it was really nice to go and visit her and be able to talk about our experiences as Americans living in Ukraine and things like that. But I learned a ton about how to manage my own emotions, how to manage my own mental health, how to healthily take out stress and the load of mental health. After a lot of unhealthy ways, I finally learned the ways that, really also benefited me. And it's I think that was my number one takeaway from living abroad too, was just... Yeah.
It takes some tries before you figure out what works for you.
Yeah, because there are the ones that are easy, that are unhealthy, or the ones that are hard, that are healthy.
Right. And it depends on what stage you are in life as well, I would say.
Yeah, I was 22 years old. I was dumb. I took the easy ones.
There's that last topic, social life and humor, that I want to address. I'm not sure if that fits with like the level of vulnerability that we've been.
We can be more lightheaded now.
I kind of want to. If you have any idea how to brighten up the mood, I'm taking that. I love hearing all the stories. By the way, it's. I'm glad I can relate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all can relate, right?
Yeah.
We all will have an instance in that. Mm-hmm. Where that hits home.
And I don't want to end with I don't want to introduce like only sad notes or challenges, right? And I will share right now just those fun moments and tidbits, I guess, that also happen. And one thing that I do recall like very fondly is sharing my culture and my languages. And so there's this night, like the international night that we host here in Boise State, that is for sharing like your traditional dresses, and you make an act if you want, and you do a lot of different things. And that was my first year, and I like to participate. And so I hosted with one other girl that she is from Vietnam. And we hosted it, and it was very fun. We dressed with our traditional like outfits from back at home, and it was really nice because we did like a fashion walk and everything. I sang in the show too, and so there was a lot of like fun events. A fun moment, and it was interesting where we were like backstage in a way. And some of the girls were like, have like makeup and fixing their hair or whatever it was, right? And others were like very much shy away from that. And not only they did not want to be like in the same room, but they wanted to go to a restroom or things like that, which is it's like it's a fun time like culturally for me when you're with your like friends and girlfriends, when you're trying to do all these things to look better, and it's a fun moment, and it's a bonding moment too. But then it's interesting to see how the other cultures don't have those moments, because culturally it might not look well, or it's more of like a privacy thing to do. And so it was interesting to see that differences, but also fun to learn about other cultures. And when everybody was ready, we came together and we still have fun. We still chatted around, have a little bit of breathing exercises before we went out. And so that's like a fun thing that happens around here on campus too. There's not only challenges and there's not only like difficult moments, but there's also fun and humor and activities that bring a lot of light and opportunities to connect with others.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, as Peace Corps volunteers, when we get together, there's always... my experience in Ukraine was 98% fun. You know, I taught classes.
22.
I was 22, exactly. You know, and we always share, like, everyone has, like, one Peace Corps story where they're like, oh, like, that story, like, that's Tim's story, right? Like, so do either of you have, like, a moment that stands out, either like a cultural mess up or like a language mess up? Like, I have a billion from Ukraine, so I can't imagine, but you know, those are always our favorite stories to tell.
Right. But yeah, for sure there's so much like fun here. I don't know if I mentioned this before in the podcast. I don't think so, but in my undergrad I was part of the golf team at Boise State, and I had this cool structure around me, so I didn't have to make much effort to find a sense of community by myself, because I already had all that within the golf team. And there was definitely some awesome moments, you know, traveling to tournaments together. You create lifelong friendship, you know, and you practice together every day, and the weekend you hang out and you go to sports events on campus. And the athletic community really brought me a lot in my experience at Boise State, and that was a lot of fun.
I can recall of an instance. It didn't happen here. It happened while I was traveling, if it's worth saying. But yeah. We were traveling with all a set of like people from Latin America, I would say, and we were all like also in our like younger 20s and or mid 20s, younger 20s and mid 20s, and we were in Austria, in Vienna, and we were at a dinner, and we were having like some wine and pizza, you know, and we were just having fun and laughing, and it was so interesting to see how people around us would react to us having fun, because their culture is so like they don't want to bother the people around, right? And so they talk really like not loud but low,
very soft spoken.
Yeah, very soft, and it was like a quote unquote fancy restaurant in a way, but we were just having such a blast that we were like in our flow, you know. And so,
I mean, we all know that Spanish-speaking people are quite loud.
I guess so. Yes. I've known other cultures too that are very loud. Like Greek culture is very loud. Italian culture is really loud. And so it was very fun because we were like all Latin Americans. But what happened is that somebody had too much fun, and so what they did is that they spilled like the drink, you know, and so it was like a whole like situation where everybody was like pointing towards us and looking at us, like frowning upon us, and we were like, dishonor to your family, you know. and we were like, some of us were really ashamed, but at the same time it are those moments where sometimes you're having too much fun too. And you forget that you're elsewhere.
Yeah.
And after, we were just like dancing in the streets, and people actually were like hyping us and clapping to us. So it was another scenario, right? So I guess that it also depends in that way where you are, the circumstances, and with the people you are with. But you can also have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a story from that too. And it's with party. But I went with my cousin here at Boise. We went to I don't know if it's a club or not. because I'm underage here, but it was a plus 18 thing, and it was a Spanish music thing.
Spanish night, yeah.
Yeah, Spanish night. So it was reggaeton, Mexican music, and all that stuff, cumbia. So I was having a lot of fun because I was here. Well, it was back in January, I think. So I was coming from December, which I went back to Mexico. So it was like Mexico, and then again like standing still here. So he told me, "Hey, there's this thing," and that day I remember first I went to a party I was invited, but it was an American party, and I invited my cousin because I didn't know what to expect, and it was really different. So I could see like the difference between Mexican and or Latin party to U.S. party, and it was very different. And after that, we went to that thing, Spanish thing, and we started like showing U.S. people like how to dance, how to move. And one guy told me, "Hey, I like that girl, but I don't know what to do." And I told him, "Just dance. If you dance, you can do everything you want."
What if you're bad at dancing?
Doesn't matter, man. You're dancing, you're moving, because
It matters.
well, it matters. But for example, he was not doing nothing, but he was like
Trying.
He was trying, but not trying because he wasn't doing anything. And when I told him, "You have to move your shoulders, you have to move your hips," and I told him, "Just do that and go and talk to her, and that's it." And he started doing that, and he went for it. And at the end of the day, he was like, "Hey, do you want my jacket?" So it worked.
It did work. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know
Smooth.
afterwards. But I don't know if
Smooth.
afterwards it worked or not, but at least that moment it worked, and I was like,
Nice.
"Yeah."
That's awesome.
So that was fun. Yeah.
Did you? It kind of brought up something. Like, did you two do like any of the stuff for Tree Fort? Any of like the free like music for Tree Fort Music Festival? There was me and my partner love the cumbia style music, and so we would go to every band that played cumbia style music, and we would dance and we'd have a great time. And there was like 6 or 7 bands that were
Really?
like free to attend.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
They had bands this year from over 30 countries.
Nice, yeah. For those who listen, Tree Fort is like a music festival that Boise hosts every year, and a lot of people are here. And like Tim was saying, there was 30
plus countries.
30 plus countries represented. That is awesome. That's so cool. So much diversity, and it's also like there's so much free events.
So many free events, and this is not a plug for Tree Fort, I promise, but it is the best time to be
Not
in
sponsored.
Boise. Yeah, not sponsored. I just work for them. It is the best time to be in Boise, and I encourage all international students to at least look at the free Fort lineups and see if there's a band from your country, and go and support them, because
It is over, right?
it's over now, but it will
Yeah.
come back
It's like
next spring.
It's like a week.
Yeah,
or so.
it's usually during spring break, and so you don't have class.
And you can volunteer.
You
too,
can
and
volunteer.
get
You
tickets.
can go dance. Sebastian, you can go show us your moves. You know.
We're gonna conclude here, and to kind of like wrap this up, I want to ask you, what advice would you give to like other international students about navigating social interactions with like Americans or other international students here on campus?
Be patient. It takes time to make friendships with Americans. We talk about it during orientation, but the onboarding of the American friendship takes a long time. So just be patient. You know, start small, right? It's very weird for an American to get invited to your house for dinner the first time you meet them. And so start small, start slow, and just kind of build over time.
I'll take that. That's it. Just I think I'm still new here, so I don't know if I can give an advice, but maybe it would be be patient
And dance.
and dance and find things to do to grow by just yourself, because when, as you said, when you're alone you can grow like the most. So I would say like find those things that make you grow and be patient and everything is going to get better. Yeah.
Besides everything we mentioned, be proactive. I guess sometimes, like especially here in Boise State, the international community is not like a huge community, and so instead of waiting for like events or for people to invite you, try to get outside your comfort zone and attend events, sign up for things. You never know who you can meet, what relationship it can become after. So you can get sometimes free lunches. So just attend and try to get involved and open yourself to learning and to creating home away from home.
Yeah, that's good advice. Studying abroad is such a difficult, courageous thing, and enriching too. You learn so much about yourself, about another culture, about how to interact with other people from another culture, that cross-cultural interactions. I want to ask each one of you, is there one or several person that helped you along the way that you would like to say thank you to?
My mom and dad.
Oh,
When I
Shout
was living
out, yeah.
abroad, they really were my anchors, my rocks, and so definitely my mom and dad and my partner Beth. I just thank them every day.
Me too. My parents, my girlfriend, my friends. And from here, I would like to thank you, Tim, because you really were a great part of like my process. Brian too, Nicole too, my English teacher last semester.
Yeah, Nicole is part of the English support language program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she too. And yeah, I think that would be it.
there's so many people I can think of that have helped me one way or another, and sometimes even without them knowing that they're helping me. But first and foremost, it's my partner. Like without him, like he has seen me in my worst, and he always tries to cheer me up, and gets even annoying. And then it's my sister. Like I can like really, really speak to my sister, like even though she's away miles apart, kilometers apart. It's like if she's like right next to me. So if I need just to, even if I don't tell her I'm down or I'm blue, I can just call her, and immediately if I hear her, I feel much better.
Yes.
And I guess that the third one would be the first friend, and the friend that came up to me and said, "Hi, what's your name?" That International Orientation Day, that is here, and so shout out to her.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today on my podcast. That was so great to hear all of your stories. It got vulnerable. We had happy moments, but it was also very informative. So thank you all. And this was Eve and Elias on Venturing Voices.